Hey Megan.
Hi. Hi, Connor.
Hey, folks.
Hey man.
Hello.
John?
Hello.
Hello.
This is for just for Red River. We're both interns with first. So
Okay.
Yeah.
why don't you guys start with telling us a little bit about what got you two starting to play together?
I guess we started playing together when Jean-Michel came to McGill uh, as a new faculty member 5 years ago, 6 years
Oh,
ago.
more than that. It was in 2015. It's
Really?
8 years. Yeah, it's 8 years
Seems
ago
like
now.
only yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
I
That's what love does. It makes time seem short, But
know.
yeah, it's been 8 years now.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we started playing together a little bit then, I guess, here and there. And then Jean-Michel got a big grant to do a special project several years ago that lasted for 3 years. And it was all about, um, I guess, free improvisation
Mhm.
mostly, spontaneous composition, I guess you'd call it. And I was, I had done a little bit of that when I was younger, but I never considered myself much good at it. And I kind of left it behind somehow. Um, but then through doing this with Jean-Michel, I kind of discovered a different way of thinking about that type of music and also a different way of listening and a different way of kind of contributing, feeling like I could kind of add my own sort of, I don't know, way of approaching the music as opposed to kind of a preconceived idea of what I should do in that situation. So I started to enjoy it quite a lot. And I noticed especially the parts that I enjoyed the most were the parts when Jean-Michel and I would just play together, or just duets. Because this was a configuration that changed all the time. Jean-Michel can tell you all about it, but it was a configuration that changed all the time. So anything kind of could happen, and sometimes people would pair off and do things together, and other times it would be the whole group. And whenever I found myself just playing with Jean-Michel, I enjoyed it immensely. So that kind of gave me the idea that a duet record could be fun to do. But Jean-Michel, you might have something to say about the project or the.
Well, yeah, it's a project that I started maybe 1 year after I came to McGill. I was encouraged to apply for grants. So I applied for a grant, which I was absolutely sure I would not get. And to my extreme surprise and also great terror, I got the grant, which meant that I had to do the project and do it well. And I was not very experienced in that type of thing. I've never been a project person. I've been more like just a pianist, somebody who plays the piano. And so there was an organizational part to it and etc. But just to speak about the music part, which is what's interesting here, that like Kevin said, actually kind of summarized it very well. It was about bringing completely different people every week or every couple of weeks. Later, it started in rehearsal rooms, and then it changed along the way. And it became something that actually played every other week live in a club in Montreal, which unfortunately is closed now because of the pandemic, and Café Resonance. And every other week, there were like completely different people who had never played together, mostly, who didn't know each other. Some were classical players, some jazz players, you had all kind of instrument, from tabla to alto to violin to or you name it. I mean, I think we never had a harp, but that's probably one of the only one we never had. But we had all kind of, and those people who had never played together, who didn't know each other, just stepped on stage and without pretty much almost no talk. Sometimes I gave some directions or I conducted a little bit, but mostly it was a 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see what happens. And I've been extremely surprised by how good it was at times. It was not always a success, obviously. Some moments were, obviously tentative, but mostly every time I played with that project, there was always a moment where something happened. So and there was a kind of like a constant, even though the musicians were always different. It is true that I was pretty much always there. Kevin was there, I would say, almost all the time, 90% of the time. We had another professor at McGill named Rémi Bolduc, who was there mostly, who was one of my co-investigators, like they say. But still, it was fascinating to see that people who had no idea who they were, and had never, some of them had never really played improvised music at all, or very little. There were always moments where the thing kind of took shape and some kind of magic happened. And so that was very fascinating. I think we all learned quite a bit about our music playing this project. And as Kevin said, it is true that each time Kevin played, you know, and I would say even more generally, not only with me, but with regardless of who else was playing, I was always like fascinated by his sound, because he has a sound that's very recognizable. To me, that's the most important thing in a musician, you know, time and the sound. I mean, if you don't have rhythm, then, you know, I mean, I have problem with that. And Kevin's rhythm is flawless, and his sound is extremely special. It's beautiful, but it's not only that. It's really like his fingerprint, you know. He doesn't sound like X, Y, Z, you know. He has a sound. And to me, that was very. So we started playing in other, you know, I mean, I really fell in love with his sound. But and so I could hear it. Then, you know, we worked on his music, and I discovered, you know, very beautiful material that was very melodic, which fitted his personality very well, and also fitted my personality, because I have played lots of, you know, cutting edge, complicated stuff in my life with weird harmonies, but I love to play simple stuff with simple melodies. I love that, even though I have not done it enough. I wish, you know, more people made me do that, or even myself sometimes. But then I was really thrilled, because Kevin's material, his sound, and the relationship that we had built, that the music sounded like almost like played itself. You know, from the first rehearsal, I could feel that the music was just going to come out by itself without, you know, any effort or calculation. Or it was the most natural way of music, the most natural music making you can imagine, which to me is what I'm looking for all the time, most natural things. So I was very happy, and when we got into the studio, it was even better, with great piano, great sound, and it was I would say there was lots of magic that day, for sure.
Very cool. So our second question is, how does the Yardbird Suite compare to venues in Montreal, and where would you direct people to see live jazz in Montreal?
I think the Yardbird Suite is one of the best clubs in Canada. I love it there. Sound is great. Usually, I mean, it kind of depends a little bit on the, you know, but basically it's a really nice club. I like the concept of it too. A community run, you know, kind of grassrootsy thing. I mean, it's been going for, you know, I don't know, a century or something way back. But long time. But I think that just, you know, attests to the way that the whole thing is structured. It works. I wish there were more places like that in Canada. I mean, it's quite different than other clubs, because, you know, it's volunteers doing things and all that. But I love it there. I've always liked it, the Yardbird Suite. In Montreal, I guess we've got two main clubs now that have jazz all the time. One of them is Liaisons on Saint Denis Street. I really like that place a lot. There's another place called Upstairs, which is also very nice. They have a good piano there. But there were a couple other places. They kind of come and go. But I think those are the main places right now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there were more, like before the pandemic, there were a couple more, but they didn't survive, unfortunately. No, I agree with Kevin. Like, I love Yardbird. I think it's a great club. Liaisons and Upstairs in Montreal are definitely the two main clubs. They're very different, but I like them both. You know, they're very different. But I think every club has a different personality, so it's hard to compare. I would say, you know, how Yardbird is more of a room. It's more, whereas Liaisons is really like a bar. It's like a bar, like you get to the bar and and yeah, exactly. Yardbird is more of a big room with, with a big stage, which you don't have that at Liaisons, or you have a stage, but it's not like that type of, that big stage and stuff like that. But every place is different. For me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'd rather have a good piano and a good sound, but every musical experience is different. It's different, even in the studio where with headphones and stuff, I had a fantastic time. Every time you make music, it's a different experience. So I try not to compare one experience with another.
Love it. Love the insights, and I'll have to check out Liaisons if I ever make
Yes,
it.
very good place.
Cool. Yeah, do you guys have anything that you'd like to share in terms of future plans, either solo work or as a pair?
I don't have any plans for right now for another project. I mean, the history of this particular project is a little weird, because I'd been wanting to do this for a while, but and I knew that Jean-Michel was the person to do it with, but it's kind of scary, to do a duet record. It's like everything is revealed, right? There's no hiding anywhere. The sound of the instrument, the feeling and stuff. It's like there's a microscope on everything all the time. And especially with something that's more less kind of what you might want to call straight ahead, something that's a little more soundscapey. I wasn't sure that I could quite pull it off. And so I had material that I thought would be good and all that, but I was kind of postponing everything. And then along the way, I got this diagnosis that I had to have a heart valve replaced. And so there's a 2% chance of dying just during the operation with this thing. So I kind of thought, shit, if I'm going to ever do this duet record, I should do it now, just in case, And I mean, I really thought that, and I was starting to have some trouble with the horn, like breathing and endurance and stuff like that. So I thought, man, I got to do this. I don't know how I'm going to play after the operation. It'll take a long time to get back in shape. I don't know if it'll come back. Blah 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 blah. So I kind of did it fast. I just booked the studio and called Jean-Michel and asked him, and we just did it in one afternoon. I mean, we had a run through a couple times in my office of the material, but we didn't really rehearse. And we had we might have had 6 or 7 other tunes that we didn't include on the recording. We tried a whole bunch of stuff kind of to see what would work and how it was going to come together. And it became kind of clear what was going to work and what wasn't. But so everything we went through, I mean, there might have been 2 or 3 takes of one tune or so, but mostly it's just like one time through. And then that was it. We moved on. And then, so I think part of the part of the reason that the music sounds nice is there's a spontaneity there that's still there, even though it's the music is written and there's all the tunes have form and all that kind of stuff. I think there's a nice kind of feeling of spontaneity and transparency, I guess you might say, where you can hear everything. You really get to hear everything. The trumpet's got fuzz in the sound, you hear the fuzz, which I like. If you hear a crack or something like that, it's there. It's very human scale kind of music, right? It's not really it's kind of their warts and all. It's part of the beauty of it, I think. That's the way I look at it anyway. So Um, I was I'm never very happy with how things turn out right in the moment, but then usually after I listen to it, I go, yeah, that sounds very lovely. And that's kind of what, what after I listened to it a few times, I thought, wow, this is actually pretty. It's good music here. And Jean-Michel just plays so, I mean, basically, he'll make every note you play sound good. It's just like whatever he does underneath what you're playing is going to make you sound good. So I don't have to worry too much. If I, kind of, I don't know, start to slip and slide a little bit or something like that, no problem. So he's very easy to play with in that regard, and he's a really good accompanist. He manages to capture the kind of feeling of the tunes that I had just by second nature, and when I play the melodies, it's like Jesus, I couldn't have imagined it even sounding any better. He's really good at it. So I think we got a pretty good match with it, but we'll see what happens, and maybe we can do more of it. I don't see what happens.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I mean, I feel like this music, I mean, you always feel like when you have good music like this, which is really, I agree with Kevin that it's really music it's very authentic. That's the word I would like to add to what he said. It's very authentic. There's lots of music these days that's, I would say, very calculated, very packaged, very produced, very music with an agenda, I call it. People who play music and they have an intention of getting a Grammy or pleasing this or that writer or getting a gig at that or this festival. When we play music, I mean, I think I say we because I think Kevin is like me. I don't think about those things. I don't care. I don't want to care about those things. They're very uninteresting to me. I just want to feel like something good is coming into the sound, you know. And like I said, with Kevin's sound and the quality of the piano, the studio, what I heard was beautiful. And then you always want that thing to get out there. You want people to hear it, because we're human. We like to be liked, and loved, or we also like to get paid eventually sometimes. So we would like that music to come out more and. But it's a difficult market. The pandemic didn't help it, of course. But it's very difficult these days to make music when it's authentic, because when it's authentic, you don't have much to say about it. It's not interview music. I'm sorry for you guys, but I'm going to tell you, yeah, I use the FIBA mathematical combination and interview. No, there's none of that, and no politics, no nothing. It's just sound, and it's difficult. It's difficult because people are like, tell us a story. I'm like, well, the story's in the music. And when you tell them that, they start laughing, like, well, you're not very good in marketing, are you? And I'm like, no, not really. My son wants to do marketing. Maybe he'll find a way. But no. So honestly, we don't know what's going to happen right now. We don't have we have that record, but I personally would love to play with this project more. I would
Sure.
be very happy to go on the road, or that would be fantastic. And I'm doing lots of other projects. I have lots of other things. I'm doing lots of piano solo these days. I have a good record company, Just in Time, which releases what I'm doing. I have a website if you're interested, jeanmichelpilc.com, so you can go there. It's a good website. It's all new with a nice picture of me. I look really better than I look normally. But this project, I don't do anything that's kind of similar to what I've done with Kevin. It's different. It's very special. So I certainly hope that one way or another we're going to be able to continue doing this, and perhaps our coming to Yardbird will help. We'll see, but one step at a time. But I'd be really happy to do more with it, with this music and with this man, for sure.
Awesome. So our next question is, how is your approach to playing duo different than other formats?
I don't have any approach in general. I think, like Kevin said, there is a word that I don't like. I've come to hate that word because everybody uses it. So it's called organic. Everybody says it's organic, like food. But in a way, it's not a bad word. It just grows by itself. Like if you take a tree and if you take a plant and you water the plant is going to grow. But you cannot tell the plant how to grow. I want a new leaf there, and I want no, the plant is going to grow the way it wants. To me, music is like that. I water the plant, I practice, like Kevin, when we practice our instruments, our technique, our sound, this and that. But at the moment the music starts, it's over. That's the tree. That's the time for the tree to grow, and the tree grows the way it wants, and the music comes out the way it wants. And one day it's going to come out green, the day after it's going to come out gray. It depends on the piano, the sound, the day, and we let it grow naturally, organically, to use that word. And so there's not really an approach, That's why it's not really interview music, as I said,
Yeah.
Sorry.
The only thing I would say is that the approach, if you want to call it that, it's not really the right word, but the atmosphere, I guess, that's created is a little bit influenced by the compositions, which are pretty simple for the most part. And that's kind of, I wanted to play to have music that's not so complicated, that is still sounds kind of fresh and vibrant and pretty, but that anybody can kind of listen to and just sit there and go, well, this makes me feel better, not worse. And that's basically, to add a little bit of joy or relief or some kind of emotional connection. If somebody, even just for a few minutes, listens to the music, that's the whole point for me. And I think a lot of times it's easier if there's not too much information coming at you at once. And so the tunes that I wrote are they're melodic and they're not too complicated. But so that's the springboard. I guess the kind of, if there's going to be a frame for the picture, that's the frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in a way it changes the approach a little bit, but it's still pretty open for interpretation. Anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a word. The word approach is a bit. It would make you think that we think of a way to play music before we play it, which is not the case. We just play it and it comes out. But it's true, and that playing Kevin's music, and playing with his sound. It's really, for me, I'm a listener when I play with this man. That's what I am. Which means I don't listen to him. I listen to the sound in general. So,
I listen to myself and just hope that Jean-Michel's going to make me sound good.
Yeah, I don't listen to him. I just listen to myself. No, seriously, I listen to the sound. I listen to the sound of the duo, and it tells me what to play next. That's what Miles Davis said once. I cannot quote him exactly, but he said, the one note tells you which note to play next, and that's the approach, if you want. So I'm going to play a chord, or Kevin is going to play a note, or vice versa is going to play a note, and I'm going to play. And then there is a sound, and that sound goes to me as a listener and tells me what to play next. I think it's as simple as that, really. It's like a conversation, really, actually. You speak, like what we're doing. You tell me this, you ask a question, I answer, and then it follows its course naturally. I've become very wary of music with too much intellectual content, because I think there is a lot of that these days, that in classical music also, obviously in pop it's a bit different. I wouldn't call it intellectual in many cases, but in jazz there has been that intellectualism, lots of complicated stuff with lots of concepts. People have projects and concepts. It's almost become like a law school or something, And to me, music has always been completely intuitive. It's a language of the soul, based on sound. It cannot be more physical, more sensual, and more simple than that. So I've become very wary of intellectually oriented music, and the music that we play with Kevin is really not at all that. It's really about, like you said, just the beauty of the sound and simple story that people can relate to. And we're not very smart, either of us, so we cannot really play intellectual music.
Well, the problem with all the problem, I mean, one of the things I don't like so much about a lot of contemporary music is there's just too much information and it's too complicated. So I from an intellectual point of view, I can appreciate what they're trying to do, and I can count, oh yeah, that's a bar of 7, and now they're in 5, and now, oh gosh, those harmonies, I but I don't want to feel tired or like exhausted after I hear a song or a set of music. I want to feel cleansed and revived, and
Mm.
I don't know,
And I have a secret for you. It's more difficult to play simple music than complicated music, because I've done both in my life. I've played a lot of complicated music with some people, and even myself, I had my times where I liked that. But and I still like it on occasion. Don't get me wrong. I still like sometimes, But it's more difficult to play something like Kevin's material, because one wrong note and boom, it falls apart. Like you said,
everything is revealed, right?
you know.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to play simple stuff. That's why actually less and less people do that. Less and less people do want to write music like Mozart, because it's the most difficult thing to do. It's as simple as that. And the other thing, and that's kind of the other side of the same coin, is that when you listen to something that sounds simple, very often it is way more complex than you would think. Even Kevin's music, he says it's very simple, but it's not actually. Yeah, you have those bass line, you have those chords. Sometimes there is this little chord that appears, then there is a bass, and it's not that simple. It's actually very sophisticated, but like he said, with not lots of information, but that small little note changes everything. Like Mozart,
Yeah.
you change one note and there is diminishment, like they say. So for me, as an accompanist, as a pianist, I have to be, it's not that I have to be careful, but if I sleep on the banana peel, the music collapses, and it's not easy. Simplicity is very difficult. It's the most difficult thing to pull off, actually, in my experience.
Yeah, it's tricky.
You know what? There was this great pianist, Arthur Schnabel. He said, Mozart sonatas, they're too easy for children, but too difficult for adults. I think it's perfectly defined, Children play them, it's simple, and adults, oh my God, but it's difficult. It's so simple, and so we adults who try to play like children, I guess. I would say that's the approach, maybe, if you want.
Yeah, I love this idea of rejecting an intellectual approach for an openness, and it seems like that is an approach, I guess, in and of itself. But at that point, we're just talking word games.
Yeah. No, I have another quote. I like quotes. I don't know. I like quotes too much. But Picasso said, I could paint like Raphael when I was 20, but it took me 90 years to paint like a child. So, it's the same. At the end of his life, when he painted, was very simple, but it was phenomenal, and I guess that's what we like to do, at least that's what we like to try. I don't know if we're as good as Picasso, but we try,
I think too, as one ages, there's a tendency to become a better editor. You know what I mean? To kind of, be when you play music, and also maybe when you write and speak, to just keep it, to the essence of stuff. So maybe there's a little bit of that too, a kind of, maturity that comes through. I'm not sure, but that's a possibility too.
That's also what chokes people up when they're improvising, right? Is letting the critic come out too early,
Yeah, there's a little editor that stands on your shoulder and tells you what not to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just our last question here was just if we could get some insight on what was the compositional process for you? Like how did some of the tunes come to be? I know that can be different, from song to song, but if you can give us some insight.
Well, some of them were tunes that I'd written a long time ago. A couple of them I'd actually recorded before, and I changed a little bit or rewrote them to fit this situation more. There were a few throwaways too, right? Things that we tried that didn't like. But of the ones we used, I guess there were a couple that I just wrote for the session itself, and thinking, okay, we need more of this like kind of stuff. And so a lot of times when I write, it's just because I have to have material, as I know that's not very uh, probably should try to just make a habit of trying to compose stuff every day or every week or something, but I don't do it that way. I wait until there's some kind of goal. I've got a recording session and I'm short 3 tunes. Well, I write 3 tunes. It's kind of like that. And depending on what the other tunes are like, I try to write that stuff that's a little different. It's not too much the same. So yeah, it's just like that. And I have a tendency to write at the piano. Not everything, but a lot of stuff is like that. And so it's I don't know, it kind of that's just how I do it. But I'm quite obsessive about the details. So as Jean-Michel said, this note or that chord and that kind of stuff, I think a lot of these quote unquote simple tunes are elevated by the by the minutia, by the details that are in there. And so the difference between something that's trite and something that's really interesting, is a lot of times in the details. So I try to pay attention to the details when
they say God.
Like,
They say God is in the details, which doesn't seem to be working very well these days. But but it's true that I think that such music is. The word might seem surprising, but it's very precise. There is a lot of precision. If it has to be clear. If you like, sometimes I tell my students to play something simple and they cannot do it. It's very imprecise. It's very unclear. The time is not clear. Some notes are not clear. And you realize that's what they have the most trouble doing, is playing something simple because of the level of precision that's needed. Anybody can go to the piano and, play clusters and feel like, I don't know, some kind of craftsman, but playing 3 notes in a row and make them sound like something requires lots of precision, And if you listen to the recording, you're going to hear that like, for example, I listened to it this morning, actually, because I'm starting to revisit it because we're going to play it soon, and also because of it. And I noticed how together we were with Kevin rhythmically in terms of the time. Sometimes it's very slow, very rubato, very airy. It's not like metronomic at all, but we are really together, all the time. And that's a form of precision that's really not easy to pull off. So, and that's something that musicians sometimes, they play complicated stuff because you don't need the same precision. You can be sloppy. It will always impress some people. But if you want to be really play something like significant and simple, you have to be very precise. And Kevin has incredible technique on the instrument. To me, he's one of the best technicians I've met. Not to talk only about the music, but the quality of his sound, of his articulation, of the intonation, the phrasing, it's unbelievably. He's a real incredible craftsman. He's one of the most technically advanced trumpet player I've heard in this music for sure. And sometimes it's close to classical trumpet, but there is always this bluesy jazz. There is always that spirit of jazz that's there. He marries the two together, which I've rarely heard anything like that, really.
Yeah, my training when I was young was all classical. I didn't start playing jazz till I was in my 20s. So I think that kind of you know, how your brain gets wired for that and that sort of stuff. I think it kind of comes, I can't shake it. You know, I can't get rid of it. It's just in there.
Mm.
The way I articulate, particularly finger tongue coordination and stuff like that, and partly sound too. So I think that's just it. That's how what I sound like, is this kind of combination, a little bit of the two. Yeah.
And I think with that music, that's what's needed. That's really that totally works.
Yeah, works well with that particular in this
Mhm.
particular setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're reaching the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Did you have a question, like a life question that your life depends on? That if we don't answer it, you're
No, those were all 5 of our
Well,
questions that we had.
Good.
we look forward to coming, that's for sure,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
seeing you
we're
guys and
excited.
making great
Yeah.
music.
We look forward to meeting you guys in person
Okay,
in a couple weeks.
likewise. Likewise.
And I think that you can rest assured that the music will speak for itself.
Yeah.
Interview music or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Beautiful.
Thank you guys so
Fantastic.
much.
Thank
Thanks
you
a
to
lot.
both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.